Sarah Wilson, and today I have with me
Dr. Christopher Stewart.
Thank you so much for coming, and we're so excited to ask you about your biology background and get to know you. So if you wouldn't mind us asking you some questions.
Sure.
All right. So can you give us some information about your position and where you work?
Okay, I'm a family physician at Baylor Scott and White Clinic in Cedar Park. I've been here for about 17 years.
Wow.
I see all ages. I see anything from shortly after birth through, what we say is cradle to the grave, and that's it sounds morbid, but that's what we do. So I see all ages.
Okay, so you're a family physician?
Family physician.
Awesome. So just what's a normal day like for you, would you say?
So a normal day, I only do outpatient medicine at this time, so that means I only have clinic visits. I used to see patients in the hospital, and I used to deliver babies, but that was way back when I was in my residency training. Since I've been here to Austin, I do mostly outpatient clinic. I get here probably 7:30 in the morning, see patients most of the day, have a break for lunch, or today was, for instance, a journal club that we have. And I see patients in the afternoon, and I do kind of a mix of a lot of different age patients. I will sometimes do procedures such as injections in the joints, and I'll take off skin lesions or moles and things like that. And then at the end of the day, I get caught up on all the patient labs and x-ray results and patient communications now, because patients can email their doctor, so there's a lot of kind of emailing back and forth.
Upkeep and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say has prepared you most for all of this wide range of patients?
So definitely good training, good hands-on patient training, but it all starts back in just basic sciences back in college. That's the foundation and has been the foundation for everything. But then it's 4 years of medical school, and then for my specialty it was 3 years of residency after that. So there's a lot of starting with basic science and building and building and building and adding in patient experiences along the way.
Awesome. So what would you say more common types of problems that you see on a day-to-day basis?
So I see a lot of folks who have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease. We see a lot of diabetes, more and more diabetes, especially in patients who are obese. So we're seeing more obesity-related illnesses and disease processes. See kids today, for instance, had sports physical, well child check on kiddos. Also see all the runny noses, sore throats, and up to a range of, I also this afternoon saw a patient who's in her 80s who has a lung cancer and has opted not to treat it.
Oh, wow.
So kind of walking through patients and all of their different stages of life and being their family physician and here for them whenever they need us.
Right. Awesome. And what would you say some rare cases you've seen? Not even just recently, but maybe just throughout.
So there's something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It is a really rare genetic disease that I've seen that is very interesting. Kind of goes back to the biology beginning in that everybody in their skin and in their integumentary system has collagen that holds everything together. And this is a basic problem with the way the body makes and handles collagen. So these people, this particular patient was actually diagnosed because of skin tear and unusual large skin tear just whenever she jumped in the pool.
Wow.
She also happens to have hyperreflexive joints. She can bend her thumb all the way back, and that's all because of collagen and not working right. And so that's an example of a genetic disease. So genetics is important whenever you're doing your studies. That's an example of something that is unfortunately non-curable, but where there's ongoing research to try to figure out all of these even rare diseases. There's another one. I have a patient who's got something called mitochondrial myopathy, and you may
we learn about
remember,
lots
yes.
of mitochondria.
Yes. And when you learn it in school, you think, oh, that's great. It's just an organelle in the cell, whatever. Yeah,
Yes.
is it gonna be important later? But for even those kind of very basic things from beginning in high school all the way up, that mitochondrial myopathy is because this particular patient's mitochondria don't produce enough energy, and she has problems with severe pains in her legs, unable to walk, the legs and large muscles requiring a lot more energy.
Wow.
They really need good mitochondrial action or activity in all the cells. So that's a couple of things. Another thing that I've seen that's not really all that rare, but shingles, which is a reactivation of the chickenpox virus.
Is it elderly?
Right. So all of us have been exposed to chickenpox, which is a virus that you'll learn about along the way in basic science and in your various labs, etc. But when you're studying that kind of stuff, think about how something as mundane it seems as the chickenpox virus can be very, very interesting and useful for patients. So because of all the research that's been done on chickenpox, we now have a vaccine for that. So we don't see near as much chickenpox in kids, but the chickenpox stays in our system. Viruses are tricky like that, and that it can stay in our system, it can go quiescent for years, and then one day it comes out as shingles, and shingles is very common. The studies and all of the background work that's been done, we now have a vaccine for shingles as well. It's not perfect, but it's good. But what made this particular case rare is usually you're right, it is older folks. It's elderly population, at least over age 50. And I had a 13-year-old girl who had shingles. And so that was kind of an interesting or a rare case. One other thing is that I have a patient, actually my partner's patient, that is 20-something, came in, real swollen parotid glands, these salivary glands here. And this patient was one of the mumps cases that y'all may have heard about, where mumps is a virus, and there's been an outbreak that started spring break down at South Padre Island. Now there's now 3 patients in Texas that have it, and many in other states as well. All goes back to another virus. We know what to expect. We know how long it's going to incubate. We know what kind of problems it can cause, and we only know that because of research and education. And it all goes back. It all takes us back to the basic science because it's all important in really all those examples.
Awesome. I noticed you have a ring on. Where'd you go to school?
I went to University of Texas undergraduate.
Awesome.
Yes, hook 'em horns. And then I went to the University of Texas Medical Branch, which is in Galveston, which is also another Texas school. And I'm pretty much a product of the University of Texas because then I went to a residency that was affiliated, somewhat loosely affiliated with UT Southwestern in Dallas. And so I did my family medicine residency, got out in 1999 and moved here. I've been there ever since.
Awesome. So you're hook 'em, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
So I'll let your daughter, who also is fellow hook 'em lady,
she was
ask you some more questions.
From an early age.
Hi, I'm Nicole Stewart, his daughter, and I'm going to continue with some questions. So at UT also, what was your major there?
I was a biology major.
Interesting, very interesting.
I like biology.
How do you think that affected the foundation of your knowledge and where you all started out?
It really is the foundation of all medical science begins in the foundation of biology. So it's the framework, it's the information, the lattice work where everything that spins off all comes out of biology, the study of living things, and then focusing on humans and viruses and bacteria and all of the things that affect human beings. So without biology, there's no medical doctors, there's no researchers, there's not any of the medicines that we have, any of the treatments, any of the studies. Without biology, we don't have any of that. That's why choosing biology, not only because I was very interested in it, because I love biology and the study of any kind of science that explains where we are and why and how things work. And then when you get to apply that to a human body, it's really pretty neat stuff.
So when you're in medical school, how often did you do like directly like biology related things, or did you do things that indirectly needed the background?
Most of it is indirectly needing the background. But if you do go back into medical school, certainly you do some research, which requires a little bit more in the way of biology background. You do some, I'm thinking of things that would actually be direct biology. For instance, running cultures, similar to what we did in college. We had some experience plating on auger, and we also didn't use that all that much anymore, but microscope work is something I learned back at UT, and still to this day I'll need to use a microscope from time to time and look at things on a cellular level.
Totally. And then how about like today in your daily life, do you ever address anything directly biology, or do you use it more to just explain to patients, or is it solely just relating back to the foundation that had to be there?
Well, kind of think of it. If I think of today, I find that I guess I am, without thinking about it, I'm resorting back to a lot of that biology because, for instance, when I was talking to a patient today about stomach acid, how to effectively treat it, I found myself explaining that the esophagus is made of one type of lining called squamous cells. I didn't explain it in that terms, but the esophagus has one type of lining. The stomach is made of an entirely different type of lining, columnar cells. That's what I learned way back in basic science and in biology, and how those two are different. And I explained that the esophagus does not handle acid well, because as you'll learn, that type of squamous cell is not built for acid. The robust columnar cells in the stomach, thickened, built differently, they can handle a pH of 2. pH would be something else I probably learned in biology or at least in chemistry. So a pH of 2, a very acidic environment, our own stomachs would digest us if we didn't have columnar cells there. So explaining to a patient today that, you know what, I'm going to give you this medicine called a proton pump inhibitor. It's going to go into that stomach and it's going to stop the pumps from putting hydrogen and chloride together and making hydrochloric acid in your stomach. I didn't explain it in so much detail unless they're biology background, but I explained how that was going to work and how we needed to take that medicine first thing in the morning before all those pumps were upregulated whenever we ate something. And so yeah, I think it's almost second nature. I don't think back to what part's biology and what's not. It's all this lattice work that's back in the body. It's that whole foundation that everything else draws off of. But I guess I do talk biology to some patients without thinking about it. Certainly from the standpoint of infections, we talk about that a lot, the difference between bacteria and the difference between viruses. Maybe I'll even expand to some patients and say, this bacteria that you have, you're being treated with an antibiotic that just is what we call static. It keeps that bacteria from growing. But what I want to give you is an antibiotic that's cidal. It kills that bacteria. It targets that cell wall around that bacteria and destroys the bacteria.
Interesting. It motivates us to keep studying and memorizing all that bio stuff now.
Yeah, it's for real. It actually does. It's all applicable later.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pass off to our third student.